The city of Zenthora was loud and glowing with strange alien lights. Traders shouted, machines buzzed, and airships passed overhead. But in the center of the market, one place was always silent. The stone circle near the old fountain. There, sitting alone every day, was a tiny alien girl. She looked no older than 8 by human years. Her skin was pale silver with soft glowing patterns that moved like mist. Her eyes were large, blue, and always still. Her long white hair touched the ground when she sat. She wore no shoes, only a thin purple robe that looked too big for her. No one ever touched her. No one dared, even the wild thieves of the market who stole from the rich stayed far away from her. Once a curious child ran too close. The mother screamed, pulled him back, and cried all the way home. Others whispered that the girl was cursed. Some said she could burn you with a touch. Others believed she was not a girl at all, but a weapon, left behind by a dead alien race. The people called her the Untouchable. Every day she sat by the fountain silent. She didn't speak. She didn't eat. She didn't move unless it rained. On those days, she would stand and disappear into the fog, but she always came back the next day. Then everything changed. A human stepped into the city gates. His name was Darrell Cross. He wore a dusty jacket, carried a toolbox, and looked like just another traveler. But he was not like the others. He didn't stare in fear at the aliens. He didn't bow or show weakness. He walked tall, his boots clapping on the metal ground, eyes sharp and curious. Darrell had been hired by a merchant to fix a damaged cargo gate. But as he passed the fountain, he stopped. His eyes fell on the small girl sitting alone. He watched her. She didn't move. No one else looked at her. Only him. Then he did something no one had done before. He walked toward her. Gasps filled the Yoi market. Vendors dropped fruit. A guard's eyes widened. Some whispered, "What is he doing? Does he not know?" But Darrell kept walking. The girl looked up. Her eyes locked with his. She did not blink. Her face had no emotion. Darrell knelt beside her. He opened his satchel and pulled out a wrapped food bar. Slowly, he unwrapped it and held it out. "Hey there," he said softly. "You hungry?" The girl blinked once. She looked at the food, then at his hand, and then she touched him. A scream tore through the air. A woman dropped her basket. Guards reached for their weapons. A child cried, but nothing happened. No fire, no explosion, no curse. The man didn't turn to dust. The girl didn't glow with power. Instead, she slowly took the food bar and held it in her small hands. Then something even more shocking happened. She smiled. Just a tiny curl at the corner of her lips. But it was real. And then she whispered, for the first time in years, "Thank you." Darrell smiled back. "You're welcome." Everyone stared. Some backed away. Others ran. The guards stood frozen, waiting for a sign of danger. But there was none. The girl took a bite of the food bar. Slowly, gently. She looked calm. Safe. She had been hungry. No one had noticed. Darrell sat beside her. "What's your name?" he asked. She paused for a long time. Then, in a voice dry and soft like old paper, she said, "I don't remember." Darrell looked sad. "Then I'll give you one. How about Luma?" The girl blinked again. "Luma." She nodded slowly. "I like it." From that moment, the entire city knew something had changed. The untouchable had been touched, and the one who touched her was still alive. But while some watched in silence, others were already moving. Far above, hidden in the towers of Zenthora, someone whispered into a communicator. "She's been activated. The human must be watched. If he unlocks her, the galaxy will burn." Down below, Darrell stood and offered his hand. Luma looked up. For a second, her glowing eyes flickered with something deep and ancient, like stars trapped in a child's body. She took his hand, and the city held its breath. Daryl didn't understand what he had just done. He only saw a child who looked hungry. He didn't know that touching her was the one thing no one in the entire city dared to do. Not for years. But now, the market was in shock. Some people backed away slowly. Others ran into the alleyways as if death itself was coming. Guards didn't move. Not yet. Their hands stayed on their weapons, eyes focused on the human and the girl now standing at his side. Luma. She held his hand tightly, like she didn't want to let go. Her little silver fingers were cold but strong. Unnaturally strong. Daryl looked around. "What's wrong with everyone?" She looked up at him. Her voice was soft. "They're afraid." "Of what?" "You?" She didn't answer. Her glowing eyes only stared ahead. Just then, a guard finally stepped forward. His voice was hard, trying to hide the fear shaking his words. "You there, human. Step away from the girl. Now." Daryl raised an eyebrow. "Why? Is she dangerous?" The guard didn't reply. He just repeated, "Step away." Luma's grip on Daryl's hand tightened. "No," she said. "He stays." Everyone froze again. The girl had spoken. Not whispered. Spoken. Her voice echoed through the metal streets. The guard stepped back, unsure. "She spoke." Daryl glanced at Luma. "You don't want me to go, do you?" She shook her head. "I waited," she said. "Waited a long time." "For what?" She looked up at him, her eyes brighter now. "For you." Daryl blinked. "Me? You don't even know me." "I do now." Before Daryl could say more, heavy doors opened at the far end of the market. A group of figures in dark robes marched forward. Their faces were covered. They wore emblems shaped like broken stars, symbols of the city's Council of Order. The crowd parted without a word. Even the guards stepped aside. One of the robed figures stepped forward. "Human." The voice came deep from behind the mask. "You have broken a sacred rule. That girl is not to be touched, not to be named. You will come with us." Daryl stood, taller. "You want to explain why she's treated like a ghost while she starves in public?" "She is not a child," the figure said coldly. "She is a mistake." Luma's eyes narrowed. "No, I'm not. She was created by those who should not have played with power they could not control. Left behind, sealed by fear. That girl is older than this city." Daryl looked down at her. You're not really a kid, are you?" "I don't know what I am," she whispered, "but I know I don't want to be alone anymore." The robed figure raised a gloved hand. "Step away, or you will be taken by force." Daryl exhaled slowly. Then he did something no one expected. He picked Luma up, lifted her gently, and carried her like a father would carry a child. And then he walked, away straight past the robed figures, past the stunned guards, through the frozen market square. No one moved. No one dared stop him, not even the council, because something had changed the moment Daryl touched her. And now they all felt it. A power had awakened, and it had chosen him. Back, at his small shipyard cabin on the edge of the city, Daryl set Luma down. She looked around with curious eyes, like someone seeing a home for the first time. "This place is old," she said, touching the wall. "So am I." He chuckled. She smiled again. That soft, shy smile that made her seem like a child until she spoke. "They will come for us." "I know," Daryl replied, sitting down. "But first, I want to know why." She sat across from him. "I was created in a lab," she began. "My kind called it Project Numa. We were meant to be used, tools for war. But I wasn't like the others. I felt things. I refused to kill." Daryl's heart ached hearing this. "So they left you?" "They tried to erase me. The ones who protected me died. I was forgotten, but the city remembered and feared." Silence followed for a long time. Then Luma said something that made Daryl's spine chill. I didn't wait for any human. I waited for the first who would not fear me, the first who would touch me, and not die. Daryl laughed, nervously. Well, lucky me? No, she said seriously. Lucky us. Outside, storm clouds began to gather. Somewhere deep in the city, alarms began to flash. The council had declared him a threat, but it was too late, because now the girl no one dared to touch had a protector, and the galaxy was about to learn what happens when a broken child and a brave human stand together. The wind outside howled like a wounded beast. Heavy rain hit the metal roof of Daryl's cabin, each drop sounding like a warning. Inside, Daryl sat at a small table staring at the little alien girl across from him. Luma sat quietly, legs crossed on the old couch. She had taken off her shoes, if they could even be called that, and her feet barely touched the ground. Her white hair glowed faintly in the dark room. She looked peaceful, but Daryl couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She hadn't spoken since she told him about Project Numa. Not a word, just silence, like her mind had gone far away. Daryl cleared his throat. You said you were created in a lab. She nodded slowly. Do you remember who built you? She looked up here, her eyes shimmered like water in sunlight. I remember screams, wires, voices calling me it. Daryl felt his stomach twist. He had fixed broken machines his whole life, but never had he met someone who was treated like one. I'm sorry, he said softly. You didn't build me, she replied. That made him chuckle. Still, no one should grow up like that. She stared at him for a moment. Then, without warning, she stood up. Daryl watched as she walked to the old mirror hanging by the cabin door. She stared at her reflection. Her small hand reached up and she gently touched the center of her forehead. A blue symbol began to glow. Daryl stood quickly. Hey, what's happening? The air shifted. Dust floated upwards. The lights flickered. Then her voice came. But it was layered, deeper, older. I was built to hold memory. Not mine. Theirs. Daryl's breath caught. Whose memories? Luma turned around slowly. Her eyes now pulsed with faint blue light. The ones who came before. They gave me a gift. Or maybe a curse. She stepped forward. Come. I want to show you. She reached out her hand. Her skin was cold, but her grip was calm. When Daryl touched her, the room vanished. He stood in a dark void. Nothing around him except stars. Floating images began to appear. Flashing lights, broken cities, tall alien towers crumbling, war, destruction, and in the middle of it all, children, dozens of them, all like Luma. Small, glowing. Each held power. Each used as a tool for war. Then came silence. A lab. A scientist with shaking hands. He picked one child, her, and whispered, You don't belong here. You are not like them. Run. Then came fire. Daryl gasped as the vision ended. He was back in his cabin on the floor, breathing hard. Luma stood over him, her voice soft again. You saw it? He sat up slowly. Yeah. I saw everything. They stored it inside me. The truth. Why show me now? Because you touched me. No one ever did before. Without fear. She looked away. And I'm scared now too. Of what? They will come. Not just the council. Others. Hunters. Scientists. Collectors. They'll want what's inside me. Some will want to use me. Others will try to kill me. Daryl stood. They'll have to go through me first. You don't understand, she said. I'm not safe. I'm not right. She lifted her hand. It shimmered, then turned completely transparent, then shifted into metal, then back into skin. Daryl's eyes widened. You're changing. I'm always changing, she whispered. I was designed that way. There was a knock on the cabin door. Not loud, but sharp. calculated. Luma froze. Daryl grabbed his old plasma wrench. "Stay behind me." But Luma shook her head. "No. This is my past, and it has found me." The door opened before Daryl could stop it. A tall figure entered, wearing a long dark coat and red goggles. He wasn't alien. He wasn't human. He was something in between. His voice was smooth. "Hello, Luma." She stepped back, eyes wide. "You're from the vault." "Yes, I'm the only one left. What do you want?" He smiled coldly. "Your code. Your memory. The last blueprint." Daryl stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere." The man looked him over. "Ah, the human, the one who broke the rule." He pulled out a thin black rod. It shimmered like glass. Luma's eyes glowed brighter. "Don't hurt him." "I won't," the man said, aiming the rod. "I'll erase him." Luma stepped in front of Daryl. "Then I'll erase you." With a burst of light, she raised her hand, and the man flew backward out the door without even being touched. Silence followed. Daryl looked at her, stunned. "You didn't even move." "I'm not supposed to use it," she said, trembling. "But for you, and I will." He stepped closer. "You're not a weapon, Luma. You're a person. And no one will ever treat you like an object again." Luma's lips quivered. "I don't want to be alone anymore," she whispered. Daryl put a hand on her shoulder. "You're not." Outside, lightning lit the sky. But inside the cabin, something deeper had awakened. A bond between the girl feared by all and the man who finally saw her for who she truly was. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky stayed dark. The clouds above Zenthora weren't natural anymore. They were heavy with scanners and hunter drones cloaked behind the gray. Inside the cabin, Daryl packed quietly. Tools, rations, power cells. Luma sat on the floor, legs folded, watching the sparks in her hands. She was calm, but something behind her eyes was different now, darker. "Luma," Daryl said softly. "They know where we are." "I know," she replied. "They always knew, but they never came before because I was alone." "And now?" he asked. She looked up. "Now I matter." Daryl strapped on his utility belt. "Then we run." But Luma shook her head. "We don't run anymore." Just then a soft mechanical chirp echoed through the walls. Daryl turned. A red dot blinked on his scanner. "They're here." "No," Luma corrected him. "They've surrounded us." He checked the window. Figures, 5 of them, approached from the north path. All wore full black armor, no insignia, no flags. They weren't local guards. These were professionals. "Mercs," Daryl whispered. "Real expensive ones." Luma stood up. "They're not after you. Just me." "Well, they'll have to fight both of us," he said, gripping his plasma cutter. But Luma walked to the door and opened it before he could stop her. Outside, the lead mercenary raised his weapon. "Step away from the girl, human. We'll make it painless." Luma stepped forward, her bare feet on the wet ground. "You came for me." The merc's voice didn't change. "You hold unstable data, a living archive. Our buyer wants it, all of it." Daryl stepped beside her. "She's not data. She's a child." The merc didn't flinch. "That's not how the galaxy sees her." Then something strange happened. The merc lowered his weapon slowly. "She's looking at me." Luma's glowing eyes locked onto him. His body began to shake. "What is she?" "My mind—" He screamed and fell to the ground, dropping his gun. The others fired. Daryl pulled Luma back just in time. Beams sizzled past their heads, burning holes through the metal wall behind them. Luma held her hands out. The ground rumbled. The beams from the merc's rifles bent midair and crashed into the dirt, useless. One merc shouted, "She's warping energy fields, fall back." Before he could finish, a wave of light exploded from Luma's body. Not fire, not sound, just force. Pure, clean force. The soldiers were thrown into the trees like broken toys. Daryl stared in silence. Luma swayed, then collapsed. Luma. He ran to her and held her head gently. Her skin was cold again. Her lips trembled. I didn't want to hurt them, she whispered. But they were going to hurt you. You saved me, Daryl said, holding her tight. She looked at him, barely conscious. That's the first time I've ever protected someone. You'll have to do it again, a voice said from above. A ship, sleek, black, silent, hovered overhead. From it, a woman floated down. She wore a long cloak and a silver mask. Daryl recognized her instantly. Commander Sci, he said bitterly. You're with the Vault Project. She nodded. And she belongs to us. Luma tried to stand, but Daryl kept her down. She belongs to no one. The commander raised a glowing disc in her palm. She's not even real. She's a machine designed to feel human, to mimic you. Don't let her trick you. Daryl stood in front of Luma. She's more human than anyone I've ever met. Then you'll die for her? Without hesitation, he said, yes. A pause. Then, to their surprise, the commander lowered her hand. You've passed, she said. What? Daryl asked, confused. Scilene's mask retracted, revealing a tired, scarred face. Her eyes, once cold, now looked gentle. She was made with a flaw, the commander explained. She needs an emotional anchor, someone who chooses her freely. That triggers the final evolution of her abilities. Daryl's heart pounded. So all this was a test? Silene nodded. Most failed. You didn't. Luma stood up weakly. Why? Because the galaxy isn't kind, the commander replied. But you were. She stepped back. You may go, but remember, others are still looking. Not all will test. Some will destroy. The ship rose into the clouds and vanished. Daryl looked down at Luma. She smiled faintly, then leaned on his shoulder. He held her close. Whatever she was, weapon or child, alien or miracle, he had chosen her. And now, she had chosen him too. The cabin was gone, burned, blasted, left in ash after the battle. Daryl and Luma had gone deep into the old tunnels beneath Zenthora, abandoned tech routes once used to transport fuel and secrets. Now they were forgotten. Daryl lit a blue glow rod and held it high. Dust floated in the air like ash from a dead star. Luma walked beside him in silence. Her steps were slow, her face pale, but her eyes, they burned brighter than ever. Are you okay? Daryl asked softly. Luma nodded. Tired, but not broken. He smiled. You're tougher than me. No, she whispered. Just older. They walked in silence until they reached a broken door. Daryl scanned it, then kicked it open. Inside was a small chamber, walls covered in glowing lines, symbols, that looked half-written, half-grown. Luma paused at the doorway. This is where I began, she said. Daryl turned to her. This place? She nodded. They made me here, in the chamber of the forge. He stepped closer. You remember this? She didn't speak. Instead, she placed her hand on the wall. It glowed. Soft humming filled the air. Then, from the walls, lights flickered on, projectors whirred, and suddenly they weren't alone. Dozens of floating blue images danced around them, scientists in white suits, glowing tanks with small floating bodies, charts filled with alien DNA. Luma stared ahead. As one image became clear, a baby glowing in a glass pod. That's you, Daryl said. She nodded. They didn't call me Luma then. They called me Subject N7, the last one. On the screen, one of the scientists turned. Her voice was recorded. We have failed 6 times. The previous subjects lacked empathy. But N7, she shows signs of awareness. She watches, she learns, she smiles. Luma's hand trembled. I smiled, and they called it a flaw. She whispered, They wanted me to be empty, cold, but I wasn't. Daryl stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. That wasn't a flaw. That was your soul. Another recording played. This time the same scientist spoke in a hushed tone. If anyone finds this, N7 is alive. I saved her, hid her from the council. If she finds someone kind, someone who touches her without fear, she may survive. The recording cut. Luma's eyes were wet now, her small fists clenched. They erased her, she said. The one who saved me. They called her a traitor. They feared you, Daryl replied. Because you weren't just a weapon. You were proof that something made for war could choose love. She turned to him. And you? You're the first person who looked at me and didn't see a tool or a target. You're not either, he said. You're just you. She stepped into his arms. For a moment she trembled like a scared child. I thought if I remembered all this I would feel broken, she whispered. But I feel free. Above them, a sound echoed through the tunnels. Metal boots. Daryl pulled away, hand on his plasma cutter. They found us? No, Luma said. I did. The far wall split open, revealing a hidden stairway. A blue light led them down, deeper, older. Here, the air felt heavier. The machines were not just ancient, they were alive. At the bottom they found a small pedestal, and hovering above it, a glowing cube. What is that? Daryl asked. Luma stared at it. My key. The original command block, the one they used, to control the others. She reached for it, but stopped. If I touch it, she said, I could become like them. Then don't, Daryl said. But if I don't, she whispered, I'll never know how far my power goes. I'll never be able to stop what's coming. He looked at her. Then I'll stay with you, no matter what you become. She turned, eyes glowing with tears and light. Even if I lose control? Yes, he said, because I believe in you. She smiled and touched the cube. For a moment nothing happened. Then light exploded in all directions. Ancient code surged through her body. Her feet lifted off the ground. Symbols wrapped around her skin like stars painting her. And then, silence. She landed gently. Her eyes were clearer than ever. I remember everything, she said. Daryl stepped forward, carefully. Are you still you? I am Luma, she said. But I am also more. Then what now? She turned to him. Now, I stop running, and I show them what a mistake really looks like. The stars above Zenthora pulsed like they knew. War was coming. The city had fallen silent. Shops closed, streets empty, windows locked. Everyone stayed inside, not out of respect, but out of fear. They knew she was coming back. Luma, not the silent, untouchable girl who once sat by the fountain, but the glowing force that now walked beside a human man and no longer hid. Daryl adjusted the strap on his shoulder. The pulse rifle wasn't his favorite weapon, but they were past choices now. They had made their decision. And so had the enemy. The council sent no words, no messengers, only ships. 12 black cruisers hovered above the city like vultures waiting to feed. Beside Daryl, Luma stepped onto the council's main square. Her feet touched the marble, the same place she once sat alone, forgotten. This time she stood tall. Around her, guards raised their weapons. Robots formed a ring. A voice thundered from the central tower. Luma of Project Numa, you are considered a threat to galactic order. Surrender now. She didn't blink. I was considered a tool, but now I know what I am. And what is that? The voice asked. She raised her chin. Free. The ground shook. Power crackled around her skin. But she didn't attack. Not yet. Daryl stepped forward. She just wants to live in peace. No such thing for weapons, the voice replied coldly. Especially not those who remember the Vault War. Luma whispered to Daryl. I remember now. What they fear is not what I might do, but what I might feel. What do you mean? They couldn't control kindness. They couldn't program love. The speaker gave one last warning. Surrender, or we wipe this city from existence. Daryl clenched his fists. You destroy what you don't understand. Then Luma stepped forward. No more warnings, she said. She lifted her hand, and, from every corner of the square, flowers began to bloom, real flowers, glowing blue. Blooming from stone, the guards froze. What is this? One whispered. Luma spoke, her voice now like wind, like light. This city watched me starve. This city feared my face. But I will not burn it. I will heal it. A beam shot from the tower, straight at her. Daryl cried out, Luma! But she didn't move. The beam hit her chest and vanished like smoke. The guards gasped. She absorbed it. She took a slow breath. I will not fight with pain. She walked toward the tower. The sky darkened. One of the cruisers above charged a massive cannon. A single shot could destroy the entire block. Daryl ran forward. Luma, they'll kill you. But she raised her hand toward the sky. Then let them try. The cannon fired. The beam came down like a sun falling from the sky. She lifted both hands and caught it. Energy tore at the air. Thunder cracked. The ground split. She stood still, holding the light between her palms like it was glass. And then, she crushed it. The explosion never came. Only silence. The cruisers began to pull back, one by one. The guards dropped their weapons. The voice from the tower trembled. She's not a weapon. Daryl stepped beside her. She's a miracle. The council's power broke that day. Not from violence, but from truth. Luma stood in the center of the square, glowing gently. Around her, children came out of hiding. The old, the forgotten, even the thieves. They saw her, really saw her. One small alien girl approached and whispered, You were always kind. We were just too scared to notice. Luma bent down, smiled, and said, I was scared too. Later that night, as the city lights returned and people gathered to celebrate, not with cheers but with music, Luma sat by the same old fountain. Daryl sat beside her. You won, he said. No, she replied. We did. He looked at her and smiled. What will you do now? I'll go where I'm needed. I'll help others like me, the broken ones, the ones everyone calls mistakes. And me? Daryl asked. She reached for his hand. You stay with me. Always. The city of Zenthora had changed. It didn't happen with battleships or speeches. It changed because one little alien girl stood in the middle of fear and refused to become what others expected her to be. Now, flowers grew where weapons once fired. The streets no longer whispered stories of curses, but of courage. And at the heart of it all was Luma, the untouchable girl no one dared to speak to. Now, they came to her with gifts, not out of fear, but with smiles. 3 days after the final confrontation, the city held a gathering at the fountain, the same place where she once sat cold and alone. Now, children sat beside her, listening to her hum strange but peaceful tunes from a forgotten race. Old vendors brought her sweets wrapped in leaves. The same guards who once feared her now guarded her with respect. But Luma's eyes kept searching the crowd. She wasn't looking for praise. She was looking for him. Then she saw him, walking toward her, tool belt still around his waist, shirt covered in dust, boots worn out from travel. Daryl Luma stood quickly and rushed to him. She didn't run like a machine. She ran like a girl happy to see her friend. You came back, she said, eyes bright. I promised, he replied, kneeling slightly. Took a job outside the crater zone. Got some fuel. Missed anything? She smiled. Only everything. He chuckled. I hear they want you to lead some council now. Fancy? She shook her head. They want me to wear robes and say big words. You gonna do it? I don't need titles, she said gently. I just need people who see me. He touched her shoulder gently. I see you, Luma. Not as a weapon, not as a miracle, just you. She looked down, then whispered, Do you really mean that? With everything in me? She turned away for a moment. There's something else I've been thinking. About? I'm not alone anymore. I know that now. But I don't want you to just be my protector, or my hero. He tilted his head. Then what? I want you to be my family. Daryl froze. Like a father? He asked gently. She shook her head. No, not a child to raise. I've seen too much. Felt too much. I just want someone who chooses me. Who stays. He looked into her eyes, really looked. I already chose you, he said. The day you smiled at me with food in your hands. She giggled. That was the first time I tasted kindness. He knelt, reached into his satchel, and pulled out something small, a simple silver chain with a glowing blue pendant, made it from the shard of the control cube you crushed, turned it into something beautiful. She gasped. It's for me? He nodded. To remind you, you're not owned, you're loved. She wore it instantly, her small hands clutching it like it was the rarest treasure in the galaxy. People around clapped softly, a few even wiped away tears, and above them, the sky cleared. For the first time in years, the clouds of war and scanners lifted, revealing stars, shining, peaceful, endless. That night, Luma and Daryl sat at the edge of a hill outside the city. The stars looked close enough to touch. Where will we go next? She asked. Anywhere you want, he said. I want to find others like me. There might be more? She nodded. If they made one, they made more. Some may still be hidden. Some may be scared. Like I was. He looked at her. Then we'll find them. I go where you go. She smiled. Then you're mine now. He smirked. Wasn't I always? She leaned against his arm. They called me untouchable. A mistake, a weapon. He looked at her pendant glowing faintly. And now? She took a breath. Now, I'm Luma, and I was chosen by a human.